Hey everybody, and welcome back to Dude's Brunch, a podcast about pop culture, internet garbage, and black coffee. I'm your host, Taylor Olmstead, and with me, it's Tyler Reed. Tyler, what did you have for brunch today?
Hey everybody. Today for brunch, I had chocolate chip pancakes and Spam. Combined those two lovely things together for a weird little sandwich.
Gross, stop, I hate you.
I like it. I like where you're going. Explore the zone more.
Ugh, hard pass. Sean, what did you eat today?
I had an egg and toast and coffee and then some fish.
Some fish?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some fish.
At brunch?
Did I stutter? Hold on, I had some fish.
A fish.
It's like everybody's brunches are going in the right direction and then they just veer off the road and crash this week. I don't understand.
I had to do a 10-mile run today, so I needed something else besides just an egg and toast.
Nice.
Okay, that's fair.
Maybe you should have had some avocado. That would have.
Yeah, there you go. Get your protein in from some avocado.
Mmm.
That's what I'm saying. Well, I had a very southern breakfast this morning. I had sausage gravy over biscuits and grits. And coffee, of course.
Nice.
Yeah, it was delicious. I forgot how A, delicious, and B, horrible for you sausage gravy is.
Have you ever been to Biscuit World? Have any of you guys ever been to Biscuit World?
No. What is this?
Okay, it was like when you drive from DC over to Athens, the southern part of Ohio, the southeastern part of Ohio, you pass by one place, and I think it's either in right after you cross into West Virginia or when you're going in almost out of Maryland. It's called Biscuit World. And I know it's a chain because I've heard people talk about it before, but I've never stopped. And I wasn't sure if that was like a thing.
No, I don't think we have those down here. So this week's topic comes from Tyler. Tyler, you had us watch... Well, is this a TV show? Is this a made-for-the-internet show? I'm a little bit confused as to where this came from. Can you give us some backstory?
Great. Okay, so this has actually been out for a while. It's a series called HarmonQuest, which is... let me just go ahead and get the Wikipedia before I say some stupid shit. So it was created by Dan Harmon, who has done lots of things that people like. Most importantly to me is Community, but
Rick and Morty.
other things. Well, Rick and Morty, which makes sense as to why you'll find out later. But and so it's sort of like a live play RPG podcast, but is performed before a studio audience that also has animation involved. So it has a good post-production production value as well. Not only is it like a sort of like a live performance, but it's also like I don't know what you would call that. It's
like a weird hybrid between like a podcast and a TV show.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. So I wanted to have everybody watch it because it's celebrity D&D, so it's got people that we like in it. Generally, it's nerd adjacent, and I thought the format, as we kind of are alluding to here, is a little strange, kind of wanted to see what everyone thought of it as, what I would assume to be the target audience being people that are reasonably interested in seeing what this D&D thing is about, but, not actually wanting to actually play the game. To some extent, whatever. So I guess what I'm kind of interested in is I guess we can just start off with just initial thoughts, and then we can kind of talk about specific points based on, how you guys feel about.
I attempted to play D&D at some point in middle school, and it just didn't really stick with me. I don't know why. It seems like something I should have liked, but maybe it was the DM I was playing with. I just didn't really get into it. I really enjoyed watching this. I thought it's a nice entry path to tabletop role-playing games if you've never played one. And the people they have on it are great. Of course, Dan Harmon's really funny. His supporting cast are great. And the first episode, the guest is Paul F. Tompkins, who is a fantastic improv comedian and can play off of almost anybody. So that was really fun to watch as well.
I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I'll be finishing this whole series sometime in the next month, probably. It's hilarious. I love really honestly, it kind of reminds me of Drunk History a little bit. How they do kind of the cutouts between the animation, which I wasn't expecting, to be honest. I was really just expecting it to be more like, what's that one with the other one that you talk about every once in a while with Will Wheaton.
Oh, tabletop.
Where it's just like a live play. I'm not really into that so much, but I like that there's like an animation with it because it makes it kind of funny. Like there's a bunch of layers of jokes in it. I like Dan Harmon's comedy, and you're right. What's his name? Something Tompkins.
Paul F. Tompkins.
Paul F. Tompkins he was a good first guest. He's really funny, and I like the girl who's the second guest that I'm kind of in the middle of watching right now. But it's good. It actually, I think it's the second time that we've talked about role playing games.
It
on
is, yeah.
on this podcast.
The last time we actually roleplayed, so.
And as we know, it got Emily into it. And honestly, I was telling Sarah when we were coming home the last time that we went to a big bookstore, like a used bookstore, I did spend a little bit of time. I didn't find anything, but looking for a tabletop role-playing game to play, which I will ask you at the end if I don't remember to give some recommendations that are not like, maybe some better entry-level ones that are still kind of fun for adults to play.
Sure. I did not forget. I'll never forget that we played a faux RPG for a whole 30 to 45 minutes.
Links in the show notes.
But I did forget that's... Do we have that confirmed that Emily was like, I want to play D&D after that?
She told us that she goes and plays now on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think at some point in the 100th episode she mentioned that, but that's part of the reason Emily's not on the show as often anymore is because she does D&D every other Sunday night.
Nice. So, general positive vibes. Awesome. So, do you think that they sort of like lay out the general instructions at the beginning of each episode? They say, hey, this is how, this game works, and they have this game master. Do you think that was, do you think that was appropriate? Do you think they needed to include that? Do you think that was useful? Like, as non-players, did that matter to you at all? Would you have understood less?
I almost wanted them to explain more. Mm-hmm. There was a moment in the first episode where they're doing some combat, and the game master kind of like throws out there as kind of a throwaway comment like, oh, well, that thing you're trying to do is going to take 6 turns, so you're just going to like not have to do anything for a while. And I know enough about this to know like, oh yeah, it's turn-based, and so he just gets to like forfeit his next 6 turns. Mm-hmm. But I feel like somebody who has never played one of these games before, that wouldn't translate, and so I wish there was just a little bit more exposition.
Someone who doesn't play these games on a regular basis, I get it. Like, I understand, and two, because it is like kind of like a serial television series almost, that you kind of have to like leave it vague in certain respects. Because honestly, I didn't until the second episode now when they're actually like picking up their sheets. Like, this is the first time that I saw a sheet where they actually knew like what their powers were and everything. And I really thought in the first episode they were just kind of going off the cuff, which maybe they were, but like
they probably were a little bit.
But now I know that there's actually like when they had like the elf translation and they were talking about like, okay, well, you can understand an Elfian or whatever. And now I'm getting a better perspective because I was kind of thinking like, are they just making everything up, or is there something that's like actually going on? But from the intro, you get the gist of it. Like you can understand basically what's going on.
And I think over time I think they generally beef up, more things that they have to roll for, more interesting decisions. Because honestly, like Catherine, I was watching with Catherine again because she had never watched it, and I figured, well, I need to refresh her anyway. She's like, when are they gonna start rolling dice? What's going on? She was more interested in them actually doing the thing. Than like the talking part, they making the funny, and so that was interesting. That
didn't bother me that much, so I kind of like the funny.
Right.
Like I think like as somebody who isn't like doesn't do this and is new to it, like I like comedy, so that drew me in even more. Mm-hmm. Now I'm more interested in the gameplay, but I do like to laugh. I enjoy it very much.
I think too, this strikes a really good balance of doing a thing but also being funny. Mm-hmm. I have real problems with Comedy Bang Bang, which has a very similar vibe and it shares a lot of the same guests and a lot of the same comedians, but there's no structure to Comedy Bang Bang whatsoever. Like, it's just complete improv the entire time, basically. And I feel like the game gives HarmonQuest more structure, which makes it more digestible for me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have not watched Comedy Bang Bang, but that's something I think I'd be interested in checking out.
Well, I was referring to the podcast more than the TV show, but the TV show as well has it has more structure than the podcast, but it's still all over the place.
Sure. Catherine had just gotten done listening to a real play, they're rolling dice, they're talking about roles, podcast. And so I feel like that's kind of like where she's coming from. She was actually also did not like the animation. She's like, I would just turn this on and I would just not watch what was going on. I think it's to be fair, she said that she didn't like the Rick and Morty kind of aesthetic of it.
Which I'm sure is like the reason that Sean and I loved it. I know that's why I like the animation.
Right. I mean, that's what was kind of interesting is because it wasn't a very sexy show. Like...
No, it's not made to look like it's produced very well, but
Yeah.
it is not made to look flashy in any way.
Right, and all the people are very ugly.
I wouldn't say very ugly, but there's no attempt to like put makeup on them or anything like that. Like
Right.
Paul F. Tompkins is wearing a suit and a bow tie, and he's the most dressed up person in this room. Everyone else is in like t-shirts.
Right. But yeah. We talked about generally the rules, and we seem like, they could add more rules, in regards to what's, kind of shown, what's kind of displayed. So, but what about the Dungeon Master? So Spencer, the Dungeon Master, he's the guy he's controlling the game. As someone that's never really played with a DM before, how did what did you think of his way of speaking, his interaction with the characters?
I mean, I think you can tell that this is clearly a guy that's been doing this for a while. Like, this isn't his first roleplay game.
Right.
Dan Harmon did make a joke in the beginning of the first episode about him being autistic.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was in good taste or not.
Yeah,
that did not land well for me.
I'm glad that wasn't I kind of rolled with it, but Catherine was like, that's not okay.
Yeah, as soon as I heard that, I was like, all right, well, that's kind of weird. But I don't know. I think like they characterize him as what, the game god or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And I guess when you know all the rules and you have to do all the playing, like all the rolling and stuff like that, you kind of have to, like, he knows the game, like, and it almost seems like when you like, it's like this when you talk about people with fandoms, like they know everything, right? They already know where it's gonna go. They know like blah 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 blah. When Spencer talks about the game, he has like this perfect knowledge, and I think that's kind of weird for me to watch every once in a while because I'm like, oh, that's right. Like, kind of comes at it like, oh, I don't know, blah. And it's like, okay, I don't dislike you, but because I get that your role is this, but it's just kind of like out of balance for like what seems to be like a script, almost like an unscripted animation show.
Sure.
See, I had the opposite reaction. I think that he plays a really admirable role because he's very good at not only keeping the other cast members in line, but also kind of building a little ramp for them to go up as things progress. One of my favorite moments is Paul F. Tompkins lights his hair on fire, and then like 4 turns later, Spencer's like, oh yeah, and by the way, your hair's still on fire.
Your hair's still on fire. Right.
Like,
which is funny. Like, he does kind of let it go, but that's what I mean. Like, I think there's, like, an assumed perfect knowledge there.
Mm-hmm.
I think he uses it in such a way to, like, use it for comedic effect and not to embarrass the players.
But that's what I mean. I'm not saying that it's bad.
Yeah.
It's just, like...
It rubs you the wrong way.
The other 3 of them are really... Well, no. The other 3 of them, it's like
How was I supposed to know,
Right, on the polar opposite side, and it just kind of, like... So the other 3 kind of have this, like... They have this kind of momentum... And then every once in a while, Spencer kind of drops in. And if he's not with that momentum, it kind of throws in, like, a quick stop to that. And then it gets moving again. That's what I mean. It kind of just, like, it has an awkward rhythm.
Sure. And I would imagine over time, as they play more, if they generally smooth out a little bit more. But then, of course, there's always going to be the guest celebrity who's going to probably be like, I have no idea what's going on. Like,
they're literally thrown in the middle of the story now.
Right. And it's...
And do they die every week?
Something happens to them. They don't always die. But, I mean, to be fair, it's sometimes kind of ends up that way just out of, like, well, that's the most elegant way of handling that situation.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that, though? Would you have wanted a character to stay for, like, 2 weeks? Or not 2 weeks, but, like, 2 episodes? I mean, I think it would be a more interesting show if people were able to stay longer if they succeed, but that turns it into a completely different kind of show. Like, it becomes closer to a competition show in that way, whereas when you do just, like, cycle a bunch of celebrities and comedians through each week, it becomes more of a, like,
I don't know what you would call it, almost like a last comic standing situation, or maybe
Sure.
like almost like WTF with Mark Maron, except not an interview. I don't know.
Right. Well, I mean, they integrate it kind of interesting because let's see, if we look down the list, the episode with Ron Funch is in it. He is like a boat captain, and so he's just like they're on a boat, and so they just kind of have to interact together. So not like always sort of like in like this traditional like RPG group or party, and like Aubrey Plaza is like a gnome, and she's there for like she doesn't really interact with the party in like a typical way, and so it's like you really kind of go through almost a swath of people of varying levels of like interest or like experience in the game. And it's kind of fun to see, because some people technically probably lasted longer. Like, some people probably could have been with the party for like a longer period of time, but they're like, rules are rules. We gotta kill you, or we gotta cut you off. So it gets interesting to see how not everyone plays it the same way. Not everyone's like this, like, oh, I don't know what's going on, and like play it like really stupidly. It's kind of it's interesting to see.
Hey guys, Zach Schonkweiler here. You may recognize me from my previous appearances right here on Dude's Brunch, in which I sound like a total asshole. But I'm actually a pretty ordinary guy, with an extremely ordinary podcast called Ordinary Folk, which is now part of the Dude's Brunch network. On Ordinary Folk, I like to sit down with people who I've met that I find truly interesting because of their passions and what they do, and try to have a unique conversation, finding out why it is they do what they do, and how they got to where they are now. It's quite a glorious adventure of curiosity and conversation, if I do say so myself, and I think I just did. We'll be returning with new episodes later this summer. So until then, stay tuned, stay hungry, stay true, and stay ordinary, you beautiful creatures.
But yeah, so lots of guests. I'm interested to see a second season. I don't know if that's even in the work. I definitely think that John Hodgman is one of my favorite ones. I think he's I generally like his character anyway, like in podcasts and generally in different media. I think he's very funny. And I thought Ron Funches was good. And I haven't gone through all of it, so we'll see with the rest of them. Anyway, so you've basically both have seen the first episode, and we've basically dabbled with the second episode. So we haven't gotten very far into it, so we can't really comment on which one's our favorite. So, but of the three main characters, which, goodness gracious, what are their names? It's Fondue, Bone Weevil. God, what's the barbarian? I don't remember. The barbarian. Great. Which one do you like best?
Oh, definitely the barbarian.
Yeah.
I love the moment that really won me over with her was when she kills the first cultist and then rips his ribs out and puts them in her hair. I was like, yeah, okay. We're gonna have fun together, you and I. This is gonna be lots of laughs.
Can I pick Dan?
You can pick Dan Harmon.
Okay, I like Dan because I think he's I hear him do some of the Rick and Morty voices sometimes, which I'm familiar with and I really love. But I just think he can react really well to people. Like, it's funny how he's able to carry the story along, and he kind of walks into stuff sometimes, and he's a good sport about it.
Right, like rolling a 3.
Yeah, it's funny. He moves through it really well.
I mean, it's kind of hard to really be like, come on. It's like he's done a million different things. He's had all these projects for a reason. So it's kind of hard to be like, fuck. How can you not love Diane Harmon's character? But he's generally aloof. So he's kind of like the less exciting one. I kind of like, just to be different, I kind of do like Bone Weevil in a way. Although I don't particularly like goblins but I do like rogues, and he eventually becomes a more interesting character. He kind of does a little bit more, but I think it's kind of fun that I think the character, the guy himself, I think Jeff B. Davis has a good way of thinking about it. I think he plays the game very well. I feel like he plays it a little bit more seriously than the others.
Yeah, I got that vibe as well. And I think it's important that they have him there because he's definitely good at progressing the story, which
Right.
Dan Harmon is not so good at. He tends to go off on tangents with whoever the guest is.
Right. And the barbarian just
Agent of
out
Chaos.
spines.
Agent
Right.
of Chaos.
And her Irish jig or whatever her
So good. So good.
which, by the
Funny
way,
as hell.
doesn't go away. That's it there.
I'm totally in support of this.
That's the gist of the things I had to talk about. Is there anything in particular that you guys kind of any thoughts, any questions for the group that I don't know?
I mean, I feel like this just compounds my ever-growing love for Paul F. Tompkins. Him being the guest on the first episode, I love him so much. I would highly recommend that our listeners go and listen to The Thrilling Adventure Hour, which is a podcast that is in no way like this podcast. It is written as a 30s radio drama, and it was performed in front of live studio audiences at a theater in California and then recorded and shipped out as a podcast. And Paul F. Tompkins is absolutely hysterical in it. So each week they would do one of a series of like 4 or 5 different like rotating serials, like old radio serials. And in his, he and I think it's Paget Brewster play these 2 alcoholic socialites who also happen to be mediums and see ghosts. And so their whole bit is just being like super refined and drunk all the time, but also like exorcising demons from people. Yeah, it's a really fun like experiment in storytelling, and I feel like that's where he thrives. And so to see him work with Dan Harmon on something is really, really exciting. Yeah, I'm really intrigued by this show, and I'm interested to see what kind of matchups they get if it continues like that. I would love to see, now that Comedy Bang Bang is ending, like Scott Aukerman or Reggie Watts come on to HarmonQuest. Like, I just think that would be a really cool collaboration.
Now, here's a question I have. So what if, I feel like the celebrity round table guests, like the new guest every week, do you think if it was maybe just those 3 characters, like maybe let's add on a 4th character, like let's just say Paul F. Tompkins played for the rest of the season, do you think that would add or subtract? Do you like the sort of the constant flow of adding new characters?
I do. I like the constant flow because I think, at least for Sean and I, we know Dan Harmon's work really well and his sense of humor. And so to see how he interacts with other comedians is what really makes the show for me.
Sure.
I don't know. I feel like I'd like to see... I wasn't really sure where this was, like, when I first started watching this, it was going to be, like, one adventure, one episode. And then the next adventure with a new person. And then... But I see that it's just these 3 having, like, 10 adventure... Like, one continuous adventure with 10 new people or whatever. 8, 9 new people. But, like... I kind of wish they would stick with one person. I feel like then you could really get a feel for them, especially if it was somebody, Paul F. Tompkins. Like, if it was somebody like that, I feel like you could really, like, that taping like this, they would open up over 4 hours that you would have of taping this, and you would really get, like, a good sense. Like, they would really be a cohesion.
That's a good point.
Because I think sometimes when you have, like, new guests all the time, it kind of, like, you get this start and stop versus this continuity.
It's interesting that you bring that up on kind of like a meta level, because I feel like we have had that same thing as well, where having a rotating stable of collaborators as opposed to brand new guests who are strangers, it's a different dynamic for sure. And I think Sean, I don't know, Sean's kind of winning me over with that argument. Maybe if we did like a whole season with one person and then the next season it was a new person, like, it would be more...
Well, it's not bad. It's not like... Because, like... But here on our show, like, we have guests that we know are gonna... Like, they're good clicks. You know, like, they came onto the show and they fit really well. Like, Zach is a perfect example of that. Like, I don't want to put Zach... But when Zach first came on, we were like, I don't know about... You know, like you are before you meet anybody. You're like, I don't know how this is gonna go. And then, like... Zach was a riot. Zach is hilarious, and he works well with this show, and like his like style complements ours really well, and his podcast complements ours really well, and hopefully ours does that in turn. And like same way with Emily, same way with Janet. Like, I'm trying to think, Ben's been on here a couple times. It's been cool. Like, not that all of our guests that I didn't mention you didn't fit in really well, but like, I think as we mature through the podcast, we found ourselves being more attracted to like a particular brand of person.
I think it's more about like, you know, it's more like interview versus like hang like sort of like a conversation, like sometimes you're gonna like kind of more talk at a person. They're gonna be able to give interesting commentary or not, and then there's gonna be someone that you can kind of go back and forth with. And so those just and there's the multiple levels of each of those. Someone might be really bad at giving interviews, someone might be really bad at conversating, but you kind of you have similar interests. There's different ways that you can connect with people, and that's just some of the people I feel like in the show that are guests in HarmonQuest, I think are better guests than others. But I do think that there's a certain value to be like literally the second episode is someone that I don't understand what's going on. She literally goes clippity cloppita to signify that she's moving, and you're like, wait, hold on, this isn't. That's not how this works. You don't have to do that.
Does that bother you, Tyler, as somebody who's played these games?
No, I just think it's funny,
But when they did the animation, they played it into her because they have her kind of
right
trouncing, kind of trotting along when she's clipping clopping, which is hilarious. And that's why I feel like the cartoons are necessary to bring it back to this a little bit. Is that sometimes when it gets to and you have those awkward moments, the cartoon allows you to actualize this, and it becomes a humor film.
Yeah, and I love that they incorporate really quick smash cuts between a facial expression on the real person and a facial expression on their character. So somebody has a look of bewilderment, and then it shows their cartoon character who has the same face. It's just a nice little subtle touch where you really feel like you're connecting to both sides of this character, the real person and the cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they could have animated this really minimally, but they choose to give it a lot of texture and a lot of emotion and a lot of depth, which I really appreciate.
There's parts where John Harmon's character as the orc, you can see him kind of look away, look at somebody, and you can see his mannerisms in the cartoon, which is really funny.
I think the best example is literally 5 minutes into this fucking thing, and it's the orc leader is hey, I just wanted to stop by and say hello to everyone, and they just started going into a tangent about their backstories, and he's I guess I'll just let you guys go on, keep on doing your thing. I'm gonna walk away now.
Yeah, my favorite part of that is one of the characters, I forget who it is yeah, your father left you as a child, didn't they? And Dan Harmon's
yeah.
I mean, that's kind of something that I wanted to share for myself. And it's just such a great moment.
I feel with that particular plot line, we just got to the part where they're going through the tunnel in the mine, and who was it? I need to look at their names all the time. Where Jeff Davis's character is I fart in the tunnel in the shape of the orc's father's ghost, and and it forces Dan to go into that backstory a little bit more, which is really funny. He comes out, he's oh, and I cry, and then there's a one single tear that just runs down his face in the animation. It's just. It just does it. It just completes it. It completes the joke when they do that.
What's I think is also a very funny addition is that Spencer is sort of almost literally a god figure in God, I can't think of the cartoon the TV series, but there's usually what am I thinking of? It's something Catherine really likes. It's where basically this guy can goes back into the past, and he has this god figure that kind of follows him around. That's from the future. God,
I think you're talking about Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol,
or It's a Wonderful Life, or any number of stories based on this premise. It's not worth it, Tyler. Just move on.
Hold on.
I love the way that so while Tyler walks away to go find this out, I really like the way that Spencer's character gets inserted every once in a while, and how he's the one that's in plain clothes. And and the part where they're going through the cave, and they're refer to Spencer, he's just sitting on a rock in the background, some character in Fraggle Rock, and he's yep, and then it just goes by. It literally just is a flash in the pan as Spencer is sitting there on that rock, and it goes by.
Quantum Leap was the name of the TV series.
Okay, yeah, Quantum Leap. Okay.
It literally didn't matter, but Catherine was in the other room, so I was well, I'm not going to waste this opportunity.
So, I mean, if anybody's made it this far in this episode, they're probably wondering to themselves, is Dudes Brunch going to do a role-playing podcast spin-off?
No. We already have one. It's called Game Night. It's not role-playing, but you can watch it anytime you want.
To be fair, I have a lot of people... I've come in contact with lots of people that are good GMs that we could try to get something arranged if we really wanted to do that, like once, every couple weeks.
Who knows? Maybe it'll be coming to the Twitch stream sometime in the future.
It could just be a one shot where we do one adventure and that's it.
So this week in Internet Garbage, I found a video on our good old friend r/deep into YouTube, and it is called The Way of the Ponytail, and it seems like just outtakes from a 90s martial arts training video cut together in literally the most awkward way possible. I don't even know where to begin. Does somebody want to share a reaction to this thing?
Man, if these were the outtakes and they were the better ones, I can't imagine what kind of amazing system of fighting that this would...
This reminds me of just all the best videos on YouTube, which are usually very awkward people testing their combat prowess against others, such as the latest one that I have linked, which is I have the power of God and anime on my side. And also there's the one where the guy talks about how he cut someone on a train with his katana that he'd been holding. It's just the goofiest. Like, oh god, this is...
There's something especially goofy about this one, though. Like, it opens with this really horrible, cheap 90s rave music, and the voiceover says, "You must automatically be able to go into the combat mindset of I will destroy you." And then in the next scene, he's hitting someone with what looks like a foam bat while that person just high steps in place. Like, I don't understand how being in marching band is suddenly a defensive martial art here.
First of all, I don't like that the go-to attack thing for this dude is fuckface. I don't...
Yeah, like, he called everyone fuckface.
I try not to cuss on this podcast to have this be a family place. But, like, you can't not... He used it, like, 20 times in a video that's literally under 2 minutes long. Like, everyone is called fuckface. And, like...
First of all, I love that you consider this a family place when Tyler curses like a sailor on this show. But you're right.
Hey, just because Tyler doesn't mean I have to do it. I can have some standards,
Listen, I'm the captain of this ship, and I can do whatever I want, okay?
I love the section in the bathroom.
I don't even get that.
Where a dude runs in a football helmet and gets thrown into a door.
He's in a hockey mask.
And then another dude gets kicked into a toilet.
I think,
My favorite part is taking my hands against a door frame and just kicking somebody, presumably right in the cojones.
Oh no, the best part of this whole video is at about the 1 minute mark when two guys with ponytails are back to back and just walking very quickly against each other for like 20 seconds. And we get a close up of their feet. Like, what are they doing?
I was
in a conversation. 30 seconds to wear yourself out.
That's what I want to talk about. Because I was in a conversation a few... Stop. I was in a conversation...
You have to move your fists really fast, you guys, so that they can't see where you're gonna punch.
Okay, so I'm in a giggle party right now and I can't breathe because I'm so funny. But I was in a conversation, and that movie is actually called Helicoptering, and that this person, who I respect and admire a lot, said that sometimes when you just got to get out of some place, you just got a helicopter, and that was the move. It was just run aggressively at them and just move your fists as fast as you can, like that. And I can't unsee it. I can't unsee it because I was like, you know what? He's like, you just got to fight your way out. And I was like, no.
I feel like that only works against, like, video game zombies and no one else on Earth.
It's just hilarious.
Oh, and then you have the great moment at 1:15 where he controls the guy with the ponytail as if he's a remote control car, saying, okay,
Wait, what?
go left, now go right, now go straight, now go back, now go right, now go straight.
I kind of want to see the real video.
Oh, I don't.
I mean, this is obviously clipped together in a very humorous way, right? I mean, like, there's no possible way that it goes from, it takes 30 seconds to wear yourself out to, I'm gonna hit you with a baseball bat.
Look, guys, these are the things that are going to make you successful and are going to let you beat other people because they don't have those technologies. And I want to thank you for watching this video and being on this podcast with me.
Do you plan for WWDC like it's your birthday?
Do you have strong opinions on Snapchat filters?
Are you tired of 3-hour-long tech podcasts?
Then you should check out 10 Minute Tech Talk. It's a show Emily and I make every single Tuesday where we catch you up on a week's worth of technology news in just 10 minutes. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Overcast, Google Play, and basically anywhere else you can get podcasts. Alright, it's time to round the show out like we always do with a round of shameless plugs from everybody on the panel. Starting, of course, with Tyler Reed. Tyler, where can the people find you?
Hey everybody, you can find my design and illustration work at tylerdreed.com, and you can find me on the socials as TDR Design on Instagram and Twitter.
Sean Evans, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Snapchat at sevans8910789110.
And, of course, you can follow me on Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram as at TC Olmstead. You can like and follow the show as at Dudes Brunch on Facebook, Twitter, and now Twitch. You can subscribe to the subreddit r/dudesbrunch. And if you really like us, you can leave us a review on iTunes. We will be off for the next week due to some travel-related concerns, but we will be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Dudes Brunch.
Of straight dudes in your brunch. Brunch. That's gross. Don't use that.